Welcome to Inside the Arena, your source for everything off the ice, off the court, and outside the field of play. With your hosts, KOMO Sports Director Niko Tamurian and KOMO Senior Reporter Chris Daniels.
It's there, I tell you. It's there.
Oh, man, that's not a good sign.
I swear it's there. They're still applauding for us somewhere.
There it is.
Yeah, there it is. The people, they've been outside our studio staging, waiting for us to go live.
Yeah, and speaking of people outside the studio, I'd like to give a shout out to the many folks, whether they're Seattle sports dignitaries or whether they're fans I see at Kraken and Seahawks games, about how they are enjoying this show and the unique perspective we give them. So thank you if you've stopped Chris or I in public, and we're just getting warmed up, my man, aren't we?
Yeah, we're at episode 29. Can you believe that? 29 already?
Yeah.
And we've been charting the ups and downs again of the return, potentially, of the SuperSonics, and that is something that we're going to talk about at length today, right? Because you have an interview with a guy who is a Sonic legend. Can we call him a legend?
I think so, and I think that just as legendary as his story, which we'll hear in a minute, whether it's his upbringing, he only was playing basketball for 3 years before he was an All-American in college, 5 years before he was drafted in the first round of the NBA draft, top 10, of course. And that leads to another story where I will quote, he said, "Who the hell is Scott Pippen?" And he tells that story, and you guys are going to love to hear it, so we'll bring it to you. Olden Polynice. I will say it as now, and you'll hear it again in our conversation. My goodness, what a great conversation, wide-ranging, from his upbringing to his love for the Seattle SuperSonics, the local TBL team, and, of course, the information he has on the return of the Sonics.
But first, what we like to do every week, the good, the bad in the world of sports business, what's going on off the ice, off the court, off the field of play. What do you like this week, Niko?
I'm going to, instead of telling you, I'm going to wear it. Oh, wait, this thing's buckled. I should have checked this. There we go. There we go. This is what I like.
Oh, my.
Give me close-up, Bill.
Oh, my.
Give me my close-up. There we go.
Oh, look at that. For people that are watching us on TV and YouTube.
You may already have this because
Yes.
it was Tuesday night's giveaway. First 10,000 fans at Climate Pledge got this hat. I mean, listen, it's not the tundra here in Seattle, but this is going to come in handy for me. Letting the dogs out at 7 in the morning, taking the kid at preschool at 8.
Are those buoy ears on the side?
Oh, are they?
Are those buoy ears?
Yeah.
They got
Because
little
I don't think they
extra-
serve a
added
function
extra
otherwise.
ears there?
Who the hell knows what I'm doing here? Yeah. This is excellent. You know, here's the thing, and I will take this off and stop being ridiculous in a second. But the Kraken marketing, we know those folks. And we've talked about the Mariners doing the same great things as well. But you want to give like bobbleheads are great, and it's when you think about unique stuff like this. Who's giving this away? Well, you know what I'm saying? The Mariners have done some cool things in the past, too. I can't see anymore, so I'm going to take this off.
It's also messing up your hair.
Oh, and I was actually having a decent hair day today.
Yeah. Well, Niko, you know what I like this week is women's sports in Seattle. It has been a great week in more than one way for women's sports. We're talking about the Seattle Storm have announced that they will be playing a game north of the border, some poutine and some hoops against the Atlanta Dream next season. Of course, the WNBA is already moving into the Canadian markets with Toronto. They've played a couple of exhibition games that have been sellouts. There will be an expectation here that this will be a sellout as well, not just Storm fans making the drive up I-5 into Vancouver, but other fans from around Canada, from the lower mainland BC, expected to show up in Vancouver at Rogers Place for that game. And then also talking about women's sports, I think there's a lot of excitement already building about the PWHL. That's the Professional Women's Hockey League. You know this, that they're going to be coming through town with a series of games on a western swing. And already we saw in a press availability this week with some of the players, Hillary Knight in particular, who's from Sun Valley, Idaho. She has been a great star for the U.S. women's hockey team. She is playing in the PWHL. She will be playing in Seattle, and she talked about how excited she is going to be back in Climate Pledge Arena. She specifically remembers playing a game with the U.S. team and how loud it was in the building. And how it's one of the best markets in the country and could be an expansion candidate. Yes, we're talking about expansion in more than just the NBA. She put it on par with Boston and the crowds there, and said that this is a league where the crowds are growing, that even a few years ago you'd have been talking about a 4,000 to 6,000 seat arena. They are routinely filling up more than 10,000 fans a night. This does feel, based on Beth Knox being in our studio,
I was just going to say,
from the Seattle Sports Commission, that this could be the kind of dress rehearsal for a potential expansion franchise in this league, knowing how hockey fans have supported the Kraken and knowing how fans in general have supported women's sports here in Seattle.
Kind of reminds me of the dress rehearsals the NBA's done the last 3 years. What do you think?
Yeah, funny.
And I'll say this, you know this already, obviously. We talk about this. Women's sports isn't the future, it's the present. It's both. And this is an exclamation point of that. We saw the WNBA, yes, more star power, even more interest. And I think this is just the beginning. And we know, should they expand here, that league would thrive here. And we talked about it with Beth, right? That you'd probably have to have something of a Northwest pod, so to speak. And that would be really cool to get those kind of regional rivalries, almost how you see the WHL teams have those rivalries. It wouldn't be quite as regional as that, right? But this is hockey country, and we support women's sports the way it should be. It would be so fun to see the expansion, but it definitely will be fun to see that swing through here on the Pacific Northwest.
And with that said, Niko, what don't you like?
Other than the Seahawks losing by 3 scores, I don't like that the crowd was yelling, "Go Pack, go," and you could hear it as loud as you could hear the 12s. We talked about this with the Bills game, and I understand that's the nature of the beast these days with secondary sites, and then there's a lot of money to be made there. But there's some kind of dynamic going on, and I understand. We're in a society where there's inflation, and football tickets are expensive. You buy season tickets, you try to recoup some of that money, especially if you can't go to a game. So I get the dynamic of it. What I don't like is that one of the most vaunted and difficult places for opponents to play and has suddenly become friendly to opponents. I mean, it's one thing when the Niners, being a West Coast team, show up with big contingencies, but you're talking about teams from across the country.
Yeah.
I understand there's a lot of, transplants and whatnot, but the fact that the Buffalo Bills could overwhelm the crowd, the fact that I was hearing "Go Pack, go" louder than any Seahawks cheer, that's a problem. Do I have a solution? No. But I didn't like it.
Yeah, and we've talked about it on this show, whether it be Los Angeles, Las Vegas. It seems like it's infiltrated Seattle now, what the resale market has done, allowing fans to buy season tickets or buy tickets from season ticket holders. And it's changed. Even on the NBC broadcast, we heard Tirico talking about that, how you could really hear "Go Pack, go" bleeding through. That home field advantage is not what it was 5 or 10 years ago.
Not at all. And Mike McDonald laments that. And he's taking part of the blame because they haven't played well at home. But it's more than that. I mean, this is a first-place team heading into that game, right?
Yeah.
So it's more than performances, as admirable as that stance may be.
Well, I'll tell you what I hate, and you might be able to predict this. This whole transfer portal thing.
Oh, yeah.
Johnny Mateer, Johnny Football, Washington State's quarterback, really led that team through a season like they've never had before, playing essentially an independent schedule. He has a great year on the ground, in the air, the heart and soul of that team. He's going to leave because of the transfer portal. This is a story that doesn't happen 5 years ago. A starting quarterback for the leading team in the Pac-12, mind you, of the two-team league, leaving for a paycheck. This may all change by the time people hear this, but reportedly at $1.5 million to go transfer to another school to play football. It's minor league football. Congress, the Supreme Court needs to get involved here. Allegedly, there's going to be some changes with the House ruling next year in terms of how much money that schools can spend. But for Washington State University, it is a massive, massive blow just in terms of trying to sell season ticket packages, trying to get people back on campus, having the one-star player leave for a paycheck, and really the system that so many people have loved for years is totally out of whack.
Yeah, college sports, as we know it, is dead.
Yeah.
Now, do I have any issue with Johnny Mateer getting paid? No. What I have an issue with is that it's kind of like the Wild Wild West, right? Yeah. The fact that the Coug Collective raised about $1 million, as Jake Dickert said, wonderful. but that should be able to compete with everybody else. That shouldn't be blown out of the water by some Southeastern Conference school or Big Ten school. And I'll give kudos to Jake Dickert. He said, this is proof that our system's working. They were finding these unrecruited guys, Cam Ward and now John Mateer, and we're turning them into guys that are making millions of dollars. So I guess credit on that front, but I'm with you on that. I mean, it's just how do you get into it the way you used to?
And what's the incentive for these kids to even go to class anymore?
No, there's none.
They're just getting paid
other than being eligible. But if you're only there 1 year or whatever, right?
They're only getting paid to move around the country and play essentially AAA baseball, AAA football in this case, and get ready for the NFL. And for a guy like Johnny Mateer, and this is objectively speaking, this may be the time for him to get a paycheck.
Yeah.
He's not. Nobody's talking about him right now as a potential future NFL star. If you're heading into your junior and senior year and you're one of those fringe guys, go get paid in this system and ride your horse in this Wild West.
No problem. Yeah, I have no problem with the guy getting paid. There just needs to be regulation so that the Washington States of the world that raise significant money and with that can't even compete. That's a problem.
All right. Should we talk about something else?
Let's go.
Something that we like to do every week. The SuperSonic Minute, updating people on the potential return of the NBA to Seattle. As far as Seattle is concerned, not a whole lot to report in this episode, with the exception of Joe Vardon in The Athletic. I don't know him personally. He's done some pretty good pieces, though, over the last few months as we have been on the air regarding NBA and expansion. He was down in Mexico City. He is the one who talked with Adam Silver away from the microphone in Mexico City and had Silver acknowledge that they are likely looking at domestic expansion before any sort of international expansion, namely Seattle and Las Vegas. And in this past week, he wrote I'd say a fairly in-depth piece on Mexico City as a viable NBA expansion market. And the pros and cons there, the support from inside the NBA, the support on the ground in Mexico City, and brought up, believe it or not, that one of the factors working against Mexico City for an expansion franchise is traffic. That the arena where it's located is not close to the major population centers or parts of Mexico City with any sort of disposable income. And even if it's just a few miles away, it would be tough for a lot of players to commute to the arena, to commute to practice, to live and work. And then, of course, security mentioned as well in Vardon's piece. But it really highlighted what appeared to be, at least on the surface, some of the reasons why the NBA would be reluctant to expand into Mexico City. And, of course, that all factors into the discussion here in Seattle. Yeah,
and I think that down the line, maybe that happens. But when you have two cities like Seattle and Vegas that are just ready to go, and there's other cities that are going to be vying for it, but none more ready than Seattle and Vegas. And so that was, the blind segue into this next piece. The Olden Polynice, 17 years in the NBA. I mean, that's incredible, right? And so our conversation, yes, the reason we wanted to talk to him was about the Sonics and what he's hearing, his memories, his connection to the Superhawks, but he has an incredible basketball story that we want to share with you as well. Let's take a listen to that. We're here with Olden Polynice, and first of all, what a pleasure it is to talk to you. We know so many Sonics fans watching this are really enjoying to hear from you. So let's just start with how you're doing these days. How are things with Olden?
Things are great. Olden's still alive, so that's a good thing. I'm being a little funny about it, but it's true. I mean, to me, after all these years playing professional basketball and living life, you learn to appreciate day to day, just enjoy being here.
Yeah, I love that outlook. No question about it. And I imagine when you have that sort of outlook, you look fondly on what you were able to achieve and how, maybe when you were in the grind of it, when you were playing, it felt like just that, like, work or whatever. But as you look back now, all these years later, like, wow, what a trip that was. How do you look back on those days?
I look at it fondly because, there was a lot of work that went into it. And it's funny you asked the question because now I'm looking at it more from this vantage point. I played back in the days and now I'm watching people. I remember getting up at 4 a.m., doing stuff like that. And I don't see the same now with people. It's almost like these kids have gotten so good, they don't even need to work almost because they definitely get rewarded for it. So it's just weird, but I do appreciate it. I love the camaraderie I had, with all my teammates. And again, but it was still a small part of my life. The NBA career was just a small aspect. There's still more life to live. So I'm thankful. That's all I can say.
Absolutely. Yeah, there weren't guys taking a lot of games off just to do it for rest back then, right?
Oh, no. Load management? No, we didn't know what that was. Guys were fighting just to practice, let alone play games. It's like,
nope. Okay. Oh, there you are. We lost you for a quick sec there. Yeah, and I think that when you do look at um, so few people obviously get to live out that dream of playing in the league and do it at the level especially that you did. And again, now that you mentioned that there's been so much more life to live and things like that, can you reflect on just how incredible it was that you were able to achieve such a thing like that?
it was very incredible. I have a weird story. I use the word weird because I don't know anybody that have the story that I have. You know, wasn't supposed to even walk, let alone play basketball when I was born. I was born with a deformity. And so I went from that aspect of my life to not playing basketball until I was in high school. From that aspect to, you know, freshman year at Virginia, I helped lead my team to the Final Four in my third year of playing basketball. 5 years total of picking up a basketball. I'm an NBA player. So it's the weirdest thing to ever happen because who does that? Who makes it to the NBA in 5 years? And so to me, I'm thankful for that because I had a work ethic that, it's funny because I think I've lost that mindset in a way as I've gotten older. And that same mindset that helped me become a professional basketball player, I should have held on to it, in the other aspects of my life. And so that's like a small regret that I have, but it's still in me. And so again, I'm just thankful for the journey that I had because not too many people get to play 17 years in the NBA.
No, not at all. And you mentioned everything you went through when you were younger. Take me through that a little bit and how you fighting through that allowed you to excel at the level you did, maybe gave you that edge or that fighting spirit, so to speak.
Well, I was born in Haiti, so I think I was already born with the fighting spirit, since Haiti is well known to be the first nation, to have fought for its independence, first Black nation. That tiny little island defeated the French army of Napoleon Bonaparte. And so, again, I was born into it. And so I just listened to the stories and what I heard about all the great people that were Haitian. And I didn't allow my deformity to limit me. I started walking later than most kids, but once I started walking, I ran.
Oh, I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that as well. I want to talk specifically about your time in Seattle for a bit. How much it's been a pleasure for me because on my way in, I saw the editors pulling the video of when you played here, which is always cool to watch some of the video there. But take me through your time in Seattle, how you look back on it, how you enjoyed the city, all that sort of fun stuff.
Oh my God, it's still one of my. I was in Seattle. Was it a week ago? Still one of my favorite cities. Still to this day, I tell people all the time, the most beautiful place you will ever see. And so, here's what's so funny about me ending up in Seattle. When I played in the Final Four, which was at the Kingdom, I told a reporter, I'm going to come back and play here as a professional. And remember, I'm only 3 years into basketball. So I tell him this because I felt it. And then draft night comes, the Seattle SuperSonics, which is kind of a funny story. The Seattle SuperSonics have the 5th pick. I've worked out with Seattle. I've spoken with Seattle. I know I'm the 5th pick. But as I'm getting ready to stand up, because I'm like, hey, they told me they're going to pick me. David Stern says, Scott Pippen. I'm like, who the hell is Scott Pippen? Ends up being Scottie Pippen, of course. And I sit back in my chair. I'm despondent. And the eighth pick, the Chicago Bulls select Olden Polynice. I'm like, I'm going to Chicago. I'm going to play with Michael Jordan. Man, 30 minutes later, I'm traded for Scottie. So I end up in Seattle, where I was supposed to be all along. But it was funny to me because it showed me, one, I'm already getting christened into the NBA style of business. But at the same time, I was like, I knew it. I said I was going to play for Seattle, and it happened. But once I got there, I just fell in love with the city, man. Like I said, it's home. I love it. I should have gone back several more times, and I still tell people I would never mind finishing out the rest of my life in Seattle. That's how much it means to me.
Well, I love hearing that. Same thing happened to me. I saw the city once. I knew I had to live here, and I'm hopefully here the rest of my life as well. The story you just told, which I loved, by the way, it kind of opened a couple of questions for me. Number one, I want to revisit the trade thing because such a small number of people will ever hear their name called by the NBA commissioner. You were one of them. An even smaller number will go through that draft night trade process like you went through. I know you kind of told me the story, but what was the range of emotions in that time? And now that you look back, I mean, it's become this story that, diehard NBA fans like myself, I always look back. I'm like, wow, that was like a really big moment, especially in that era of basketball.
It was. And it's funny how life works. Everybody's, we're all prisoners of the moment. It's like they want to judge me and Scottie Pippen right now. But it's like back then I was the bigger name. All of us were. No one knew who Scott Pippen was, and out of Central Arkansas. So it wasn't like, anything major. It's just that what people also don't realize that trade happened the night before. So, but due to NBA rules, you can't, make a trade. You can't publicly announce it until after the draft. A certain amount of time has to go by, and then they can say, okay, this trade was made. So it seems like me and Scottie were traded for each other technically, but we weren't. The trade had already happened, and I've always been a proponent. I'm like, dude, if you make a trade the night before, switch the draft order. Make it simple for the fans. This is too damn confusing, trying to figure out where guys are going to end up. Okay, he's being drafted here by this team, but he's going to end up over here eventually. It's like, no, just switch everything around.
It's still confusing to this day, no question about it. Like, wait, he's going here, but yeah, absolutely. And given that experience, it was like another thing you had to kind of deal with, fight through. I know it ultimately landed you here where you loved. But again, I'm struck even just in the first few minutes of our conversation, what you went through growing up, how you defied the odds in that regard, making the NBA just a few years after picking up a basketball. Take me through the sort of, for lack of a better term, because the term's escaping right now, but the mental fortitude, the strength it takes to go through like you did, and maybe how that can serve as an example for anybody, any walk of life that might be watching this.
Wow. You want me to talk about my book then?
I would love for you to do that.
Because I am in the process of writing this book, and I need to finish it more than anything. I had started it, but stuff happened. But my mental fortitude is what got me to walk when I was supposed to. It's what also made me valedictorian of my high school. It's what made me go to Virginia. It's what made me become an NBA player. It's the fact that I was born into a family and into a culture that preaches hard work. And no matter what, there's no excuses. And yes, I've gotten Americanized over the years. And so, things like that happen. But growing up, that was it.
Hey, I want to, first of all, when the book is done, you got to come back here with us, hopefully here in person. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
And hopefully when that happens, we're talking about the return of the Sonics, right? We know that there's been...
Man, I can't wait.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, take me through that. We've heard the commissioner say this season, he told my teammate here, Chris Daniels, that this season he's going to address expansion. We all know that Seattle and Vegas appear the obvious destinations. Your excitement when you hear that thing and anything that you may be hearing about the potential and hopeful return here to Seattle.
Well, I've been hearing a lot. I'm also an NBA analyst for Fox Sports. So, yes, I do have sources. And I'm I like to think that I'm well respected in the basketball community where people tend to talk to me and share stuff. It's funny, Isaiah Thomas said this about me years ago when I got traded to the Pistons in regards to Dennis Rodman. He said, Dennis Rodman likes you because, you're a lot like him, but you're nothing like him, And then he goes, and other teammates like you just the same way. He says, you know why? I said, why? He said, because you're like a chameleon. You can, you can fit your environment. And that always stuck with me. And that's true. So with that being said, I've spoken with people over the years, like I said, and I know it's going to be Seattle and Vegas. I know it for a fact. They were waiting to announce it because of the, not collective bargaining, the TV deal. Mm-hmm. So now that they finally got that done, it's gonna be a lot cleaner now. So I personally think they're gonna announce it by the finals. In 2025. I think they will announce it by that time. But I'm still digging to get a drop dead date. But it's exciting because the Sonics, when they left, which was the most horrific thing to ever happen, I'm still mad with Schultz about that a little bit. Don't ever sell to somebody from Oklahoma, dude.
Right?
He's going back home. But I understand business, but the fact that they kept the name should have let everybody know that the Sonics were coming back. Because any other time, you just move everything over. But they decided, hey, this is part of the plan. Let him have the team, and then the Sonics will come back in time. It's just taking too long. They had the Sacramento Kings, and that fizzed out. So it's just a matter of time right now.
And that's just it, too. It's been too long, like you said. Seattle, as you know, it's a basketball town. 16, 17 years is a long time, but we'll say when for now in that kind of optimistic tone. But when the league comes back here, it's almost going to feel like it never left, right? From the standpoint of that this city is built and ready to go. Certainly the Climate Pledge Arena, state of the art, and all the NBA guys when they do the preseason game love it. But it's almost, Seattle, I guess the question I'm trying to beat around the bush here too is Seattle is custom made and ready for this when and if it happens, right?
Of course it is. Seattle is a sports town, and I love it. You have baseball, you have football, you have hockey. Come on now. And you don't have basketball of all sports? With the rich history that the Sonics have, you don't have basketball? I'm telling you, that was the most insane thing to ever happen in sports to any franchise. Forget the Cleveland Browns or Baltimore Ravens, whatever you want to call them. Forget all of that stuff. It's the Seattle SuperSonics leaving to go to Oklahoma City. That's the most egregious thing to ever happen in sports.
Mm. Yeah, no, I agree with you there. No question about it. We talked a minute ago about the league changing and all that sort of thing. I know the answer to this. I just want to hear it from a legend such as yourself. How does Seattle and the Sonics brand fit in today's league?
Well, it's going to fit fine. Players are going to love coming here. One of the things I loved about Seattle is the proximity to Vancouver, another team that maybe shouldn't have lost their team. But it is what it is. But Seattle is going to welcome this team, and it's going to be great. I think the players that are playing for the Sonics, the new Sonics, are going to love it. And teams, teams coming in are going to enjoy it. And so it's going to be a match made in heaven. The league has changed, same sport as I play, but it's a different game.
Can I tell you how reassuring it is to hear you still in the game plug-in, as excited as you are, as confident as you are? A lot of Sonics fans watch this show, and certainly, with kind of that excitement and anticipation for what may be coming. What would be your message to them as they certainly have waited all these years, and it appears now anyway that we're kind of in the home stretch of that waiting period?
When the Sonics come back, don't take it for granted.
Mm.
That's right? It. When they come back, don't take it for granted. Don't be like, they're going to be here forever. No. Enjoy it, appreciate it, be supportive.
Absolutely. I have a couple. I know I said I'd only take a few of your minutes, but it's just been such a fun conversation. Excuse me. You're good. I wanted to one more thing about your NBA career and your time here in Seattle. I know it's tough with 17 seasons, but what can you point to a couple moments and memories that stand out above the rest that when you're talking about your career with somebody, you're like, hey man, this story maybe something that's not something that we would see on the surface, even just a fun memory or moment that comes to mind for you.
Man. Gonna get me in trouble. There was so many. One of the best memories for me about playing for the Sonics is the camaraderie. Nate, Dale, Tom Chambers, X. I mean, Kevin Williams, Danny Young, all these guys, Russ Shaney, Derek McKee, my favorite teammate, my best friend. It was just Alton Lister. Who else? Clement Johnson. I gotta say everybody. Yeah. That was our team. If one guy wanted to go out, the whole team went out. The whole team, we hung around each other. We were supportive of one another. I never thought I would see that within an NBA team. And so to me, that meant more to me than anything else in the world, And so, there was like a lot of stuff going on while we were playing, trying to win games and everything else. I'm sure people remember the whole X and Dale fight and everything else, but we were close. And the only reason they fought is because they were so close. They were like brothers. And I think it just escalated to more. But I did enjoy the fact that no matter what, man, we all looked out for each other, for the most part. And I'm always going to cherish that. That's a part of my basketball career that I will always value. Always.
Thank you for sharing that. I love that. I want to talk to you before I let you go about the Seattle SuperHawks. Take me through what Jackie and Pierre are doing. And we talked about it. I mean, certainly the Storm has kind of carried the banner of basketball here in Seattle. But as far as men's professional, I mean, the SuperHawks are kind of that outlet for basketball fans and an opportunity for players. I'll get specific on that in a second, I suppose. But just what they're doing here for basketball in Seattle, how cool it is.
It's great, to have a professional basketball team there in lieu of the Sonics. No, they're not the NBA, but it's still a fun league. It's something you can do. It's cheap. It doesn't cost you $500 for a seat. So and the players are very good. We've seen a couple of guys make it to the NBA. One in particular, Lindy Waters, who plays for the Golden State Warriors, was a member of a team, the Enid Outlaws in the TBL. And so to me, and also he was an Uber driver, but it's like crazy things happen like that in the TBL. Guys, get an opportunity and they make the most of it, as he did, and some other guys. So I'm happy for Jackie and Pierre for bringing this to Seattle. They've been very good owners, great owners, as a matter of fact. And, they look out. What I like about them is there's some similarities to how the Accolades ran things when I was there, of actually caring about the players. And so that's kind of cool to me. I can see some similarities. So that's real nice. But it's fun. I like, I come back every now and then to watch games and to help out. So it's a lot of fun for me.
Well, when you come back, we got to meet in person for sure.
Definitely.
I would love that. You talked about that, how they look out for their players. Speak to the opportunity, if you could, for these players. We know, I mean, listen, the NBA is maybe between the G League team and the main NBA team, couple dozen spots. It's not like football where there's like 50 plus, you know what I'm saying? So sure. There's a lot of really talented guys that don't have a home right now. So speak to the opportunity the TBL gives those guys to showcase their stuff, and in some cases be able to take that to a higher level too.
The TBL definitely does give an opportunity. And I'm always a firm believer, if you are a basketball player, you should be playing basketball. It doesn't matter where. Just play. Keep playing. Somebody will find you. We used to say that all the time, especially now with social media. We'll find you everywhere. It doesn't matter where you are now, And so, but you need to be playing structured basketball within a system. Again, that's what Lindy Waters did. And he turned that into a G League tryout, turned that into an NBA two-way, turned that into an NBA contract. Now the Golden State Warriors love him. So he's set. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. And so again, there's opportunities for guys. And so they just have to know how to go about getting it, and being ready when that time comes. And that's also a problem with a lot of young players. You get the opportunity, it's like, oh man, I didn't work out this month. Oh, I'm not ready to perform. You only get that one opportunity, so you got to make the most of it.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things where we talked about it, where it's such a fun brand of basketball to watch. And I think because of that, the league and the SuperHawks franchise itself is growing exponentially. I mean, I know the league has something between like 48, 50 teams, because once people saw it in one part of the country, like, hey, we want a franchise here. Yeah. So what does that say about not just the game, of course, but the brand of basketball with that league and with the SuperHawks specifically?
Well, it says that there's a place for it. It's not always about the NBA or Europe or China, but at the same time it is, because there's the NBA, Europe, China, Philippines, South Korea, and it's like everywhere. So it's like, okay, fine. Now the TBL. So there's always going to be a brand of basketball. And if you put out a good product, people will come. It's not going to be 18,000 fans in the stands, but you're still going to be able to continue your career path and make some money and have fun. And so to me, the TBL, that's why, like you said, there's so many teams now, because once someone sees it, they're like, hey, I want a franchise. I like this. Because they do a good job of putting it out there. They videotape the players, so you have ready-made tapes to send to teams. And again, they play within the NBA rules. It's the same rules, so you're getting used to that. There's only one difference between TBL rules and NBA rules. It's the goaltending. You can hit the ball off based on if you're on offense or defense, and that's the only difference. But everything else is the same as the NBA.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's so much fun. Absolutely. Olden, before I promised you when we were texting, it only take 10 minutes. I think it's been closer to a half hour because I've enjoyed this call so much.
I'm a talker, man. It's fine.
I am too. And I've just thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And the last thing I'll ask you is for, again, any Sonic fan that's watching this, that was maybe went to the games at the old Key Arena and watched you play and loved watching you even when you played on other squads. If you could reach, since this is kind of an avenue to reach out to them, what would you say to those folks who cheered you on all those years?
Oh, man. And again, listen very closely, all Sonic fans. And it goes for everybody, but definitely a Sonic, because this was my first team. I created roots and friendships and family there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I told somebody the other day, they were like, oh my God, I'm such a big fan. And I'm like, I don't take it for granted. I really don't. I guess I'm a different kind of athlete. I don't take it for granted. Somebody says I'm a fan of yours. It means a lot to me. And so I truly appreciate that. And the fans in Seattle were some of the best that I've ever experienced. And so I am thankful for that. So much so I came back and played for the Sonics a second time. So I love Seattle. It will forever be in my heart, and it will forever be home to me. And I just want to tell all the fans, get ready for the new Sonics. But as a former Sonic player, I do thank you, and I hope you guys show love to the new team just like you did for us. Thank you.
Olden Polynice, that was a fantastic and fun conversation. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Niko.
There you have it, Chris. First of all, what a fun conveation that was. And I'm going to hold him to that when the book is done. We're going to get him in the studio with us. And he'll be around this summer to help out the SuperHawks. Shout out to Pierre Crockerill and Jackie Yang. Really doing amazing things with that. There's potential. Who knows? They could be involved not just in the interest, but in any return to the Sonics. So really cool things for the basketball community. But just good to hear from Olden. And who the hell is Scott Pippen?
Who is Scotty? Scott Pippen? Scotty? I think I've heard something about him.
I think I have some of his basketball cards. That was so much fun. Thanks so much to Olden.
Hey, happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you, Chris. What a great Christmas wish to do the show the other week. I mean that. It's a lot of fun.
And we will do it again next week, same time, same audio and video platform.
Take us home, baby.
You've been listening to Inside the Arena with Niko and Chris. Please subscribe on your favorite platform. Until next time,